In this video, you're going to learn how to integrate SQL with FastAPI. Together, I'm going to break everything down for you guys on how we construct endpoints in FastAPI, and more importantly, test these endpoints. But together, instead of using a Python dictionary, you're going to learn how to build a database and integrate SQL into the APIs. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back, guys, for another episode of Code with Josh. In today's episode, we're going to be exploring FastAPI, but how to integrate a SQL database into this API, get everything working together. You're going to explore SQLAlchemy and building out a database model, as well as how we use Pydantic Models to interact with the API. The best part about FastAPI is actually the docs and our ability to run tests on our API as we're building it out. I'm going to break all this down for you guys and explain how we do this in the video. Let's jump into it. All right, guys, jumping right into it. Now, we're going to be integrating a SQL database into FastAPI using SQLAlchemy. If you guys missed my last mini course, I covered an introduction to FastAPI. I will try and link that video up here, or it's going to be in the description. That is a great starting video to understand how FastAPI works and endpoints that you should watch before jumping straight into here in the SQL integration. Those two are going to work together. Now, real quick, for FastAPI, we're going to be performing like CRUD operations. And CRUD just means create, read, update, and delete. These are our HTTP requests that we're going to be interacting with FastAPI with. A create is a post request, read is get, update is put, and delete is delete. And we will go through how to create these endpoints, as well as interacting with the FastAPI docs to actually test this and make sure everything's working. Now, first things first, I would need us to open our terminal, and everything we're going to be using today, we are going to install. I already have this, but if you don't already have this, we're going to need to install FastAPI. We are going to install SQLAlchemy. We're going to install as well Uvicorn. And Uvicorn is needed to run FastAPI because it's so light. It's not like Flask. It's even lighter than Flask. We're going to run it through Uvicorn to run the API and check it and test it. Okay, I already have these installed, so I'm not going to run this. But if you don't, you're going to need these. And then we're pretty much just going to jump straight to our imports. Okay, so I'm going to say from FastAPI, we want to import FastAPI. The class, there we go. I am going to do HTTP exception as well as depends. Each of these I'm going to cover as we use them. From SQLAlchemy, we are going to import create engine. We're going to import column, integer, and string. These are the data types that we're going to give to our database. Along with that, okay, we are going to have to tap into declarative and import declarative base. This is going to be our base model for SQLAlchemy in our database. And then lastly, we are going to say from ORM, we are going to import here session maker as well as the class session, okay? So this is for FastAPI and SQLAlchemy. Now, SQLAlchemy runs on Pydantic Models. That works best with it. So I'm going to say from Pydantic, I'm going to import base model here. And then we're just going to do some best practices. I'm going to say from typing. I might use it. Let's do optional and let's do list. Okay, those are pretty much going to be our endpoints. Now, to really just get FastAPI up and going, let's just make sure. I'm going to say app is equal to. So I am making an object, a FastAPI object called app. And I'm going to give it a title. I'm just going to say integration with SQL. And let's just say code with Josh. Okay. And then really, once I have an app, if you guys are getting value in today's video, help out my channel. Hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you guys so much. It does mean the world. Now, on to today's sponsor, Just kidding, I don't have a sponsor. It's kind of myself. My Python masterclass is the first link in the description. That masterclass I've curated over the last 4 years, creating a structured system to help you truly master Python from A to Z. I break everything down through interactive lessons, live coding, as well as real coding challenges that you guys can challenge yourself to make sure that you're learning everything along the way. Not only is it just a normal masterclass, no, you get a private Python community as well as live Q&A sessions where you can jump in, ask questions to break through barriers and further your understanding. And if you're really lucky, you're going to get one-on-one coaching with me, depending on what level of the masterclass you choose. Each level includes all my Python ebooks, so if you're ready to excel your career, change careers, or just all around learn Python, check out the first link in the description.
And I'm going to say get. And inside get, we need to give it the endpoint. So for example, here is my website. If you go to the landing page, this is the landing page and everything starts with the slash. That is like the home page. As we build out endpoints, this is going to change, right? It's going to be like user or user1. And this is an endpoint that we're building out here with FastAPI. All right, so I'm just going to leave that. So the first one, typically, I can define a function. It's going to be called root, and I'm just going to return a very basic message here. And this is just going to be like intro to FastAPI with SQL. Subscribe. Cool. To run this and just make sure it's working, I'm going to open my terminal here. Let's clear my terminal. And inside here, we're going to need to use, let me run that again. We are going to run uvicorn. Now, like I said, uvicorn is going to help us run this because it's so lightweight. In order to run FastAPI, I'm going to say uvicorn, type the name. So mine is my API. I'm going to say my API : app, not .py, app, -- reload. Run that. And it's going to supply you a URL that I'm going to go into right here. Let's make my page smaller. And there you go. This is the welcome message that we saw, okay? But really where FastAPI shines is the documentation. So if I just go to /docs here and I run this, every time we make an endpoint, it's going to appear here. And this is where we can actually run it and we can test it. All right, so this is pretty cool. Now, before we build out any endpoints, I need to set up SQL to handle this. We need to create our models to handle the data and pass that through not only the API, but also into our database. So coming back here, under app, we are going to do a few things. Let's do our database setup. And I'm going to create my engine. This is really going to be used to establish our database. For this, I'm going to be using SQLAlchemy, or not, well, I am going to use SQLAlchemy, but I meant SQLite, as that's just best here. So I'm specifying the type of SQL, and then we're just going to create a database, users DB. You can call this anything you want as long as it ends in the DB extension. And then because FastAPI is running so many different threads, SQL can really only do one thread at a time unless we specify otherwise. So I'm going to say here connect args, and we're going to say is equal to check same thread, and I'm going to put that as false. Okay, just like that. Once I've established this, I'm going to create a session. Now, usually I'd call this session, but that's going to interfere with our imports. So I'm just going to call this session local. And we are going to say our session maker. This is going to create us a database session. And to prevent it from auto putting in our data, to prevent it from reloading every time it loads, I'm going to do a few things here. I'm going to say auto commit is equal to false. We're going to say auto flush is equal to false. And then we need to link together the engine with our session. The engine is what I've just defined here. So I am binding together the engine with our session. Pretty cool. we imported something called declarative base. This is just the base class that we can start building our database model around. So I'm going to say base is equal to declarative base. Now down here, when we create our database model, I'm going to say class user, and I'm going to give it the base model. Now everything can be built out from here. A SQL database is a lot like an Excel spreadsheet. An Excel spreadsheet, we have different tables. In each table, we have rows and we have columns. A database model is essentially like a row in a table. Okay, and each row has the data for each column. So let's create a table. I'm going to say table name is equal to users. Then down here, what columns do we want to see? I want to see an ID, I want to see a name, let's say an email, let's say a role. For each of these, we need to create a column, right? This is going to be a column in our database, just like that. ID is what allows us to tell each user apart. Each user is going to have their own unique ID, which will be specified by integer, and we don't actually have to make this. Primary key is going to do that for us. This automatically increments every time you add someone to your database, and I'm just going to say index, so it's indexable, true. The name of a person is a string. If I want to say the name can only be a maximum of 100 characters, I can specify 100. This cannot be empty. So I'm going to say nillable is false. For these ones, email is also going to be a string. And let's say, for example, no one can have the same email. So I'm going to say unique is true. And then the role is also going to be a string. It's going to be nillable. Or nullable, excuse me. This is our model. This model needs to speak to our engine now. So we're going to come down here and I'm going to say base metadata. We are going to say create all. Inside that, we're going to give it our engine. All right, so this is now linking everything together. All right, great. The final step before we build out these endpoints is we need to create Pydantic models. This is really our API models of what we send and what we receive. These Pydantic models are basically like a data class, which is really cool. So I'm going to say here like class, let's say user create, and this is going to inherit what we imported for base model. Now I just need to specify what data is in each of these models. So name is a string. Okay, and I don't have to give it an equals or a value. This is just a data class. And so I'm making sure that when I give it name, name is of the data type a string. We have email, this is also a string, and we have role, this is a string. That would be our first model. Now, FastAPI works on what we call model responses. And this is, for example, a class that we can create. And this model responses job is to protect any private information that you might have. And for example, if you have a password hash or you have internal notes, it's going to restrict that from being given out through the API. So this is like a safety net to prevent that. This is going to be our ID, and this ID is going to match up to the user in our database. And then all of these, name is a string, email is a string, role is a string. I don't really have any data I want to hide from the outside, but this would be a model response. Inside here, we need to set up a quick configuration, and we're just going to say from attributes, I'm going to say is equal to true, just like that. These Pydantic models are done. Our database is also done. I want to do a quick run to establish the database. And I suppose to handle this, the best practice is we could create a function called getDB. And all this is going to do is inside here, I'm going to create a database object, and this is equal to our session local that I defined up above. And we're going to try to give back the database. Done. And then once that succeeds or whatever happens there, I'm going to say db close. We're going to close the database. If I want to run it real quick, we can say getDB Let's run our code. Now, when we go over here in our folders, you're going to see here is the database that we just made. It's empty. We can't see it. Just remember, it's like a spreadsheet. Okay. So now that everything is pretty much established, let's go through to create some endpoints and actually start testing this. All right. So let's first create one for get user. For now, for a second, I'll put pass def create user. Okay, so I'll do these two first. We can get a user, but we can't really get a user until we create a user. What we're going to do in order to create a new endpoint here is above the function, we're going to give it the decorator with what we are about to do. So I'm going to say app.get. Inside here, we need to build out this endpoint now. So I'm going to say slash users slash. This is going to take some kind of user ID, just like that. Okay, user 1, user 2, it's going to allow us to get a single user. And here I'm going to give it my response. Where is my response model? And I'm going to say here user response. This is the user response class, the Pydantic model. Now, in order to get a user, right, we're getting one user. So I need to make a query to my database, and I need to fetch the user who matches the user ID. So let's create a user object, and we're going to make a database query to our model user, and we're going to apply a filter. What is that filter? Well, wherever the user ID is equal to user.id, we want to get the first one. Now, a few things here. We don't have user, right? That's an issue. And I'm not giving this endpoint my database. That's also an issue. So inside our function here, we're going to say user ID is an integer. And then we're going to say our database is actually a session. And this depends on this function. Okay, so it depends, it means that this whole endpoint, it depends on this function running and returning the database. And then our user ID is coming from the user we are trying to collect. So if not user, if there's not a user, I'm going to raise our HTTP exception. And this is going to take a status code. So like a 404 error, for example. And then you can create a detail that just says like user not found. Just like that. Now, we always want to perform that check first, so it handles it, it raises the exception, right? Otherwise, we are just going to return the user, okay? That's really it. That is what's happening with this endpoint, okay? Now, we can get a user, but we don't have a user until we create a user. This is a post request. We are posting, we are sending information off to our database. This endpoint, we can call it users slash, nothing here. And again, I'm going to give it my response model. So I'm going to copy this. We're going to paste that. And inside here, what do we need to give it? I need to give it a user. So I'm going to call this, what did we call our Pydantic model? User create. Okay, so I'm going to give it user create. Okay, just like that. And once again, this depends on our database session. It depends on if the database was returned to us. Before we create a new user, we want to see if it already exists. Now, in the database, we said that email must be unique. People can have the same name. People can have the same job, but email needs to be unique. So the first check I'm going to do is a query to see if the email is already in our database before we create a new user. So if db query, we're going to make a query to the user again. We are going to put a filter on here, and we're going to say user email is equal to user.email. Let's get the first one back. Okay, so if that returns true, once again, I'm going to raise an exception. I will say user already exists. Did I exists? Let's pretend that that's spelled right. Okay, so the user already exists. Otherwise, you need to make a new user, create a new user. So I'm going to say here, new user is an object of the user class. So here we're going to give it everything it needs. So I'm just going to say user dictionary. We can take our database and we're going to add the new user to the database. And anytime we make changes to the database, we always commit. If you do not commit, Python is not speaking to your database. This information is not going to your database. Once we commit, we are going to say refresh. I want to refresh the database with the new user, and then we can return the new user. That's great. Let's save that. Let's open our terminal real quick and let's test this. Uvicorn, my API, app, reload. So I'm going to go to my URL. Let's let it open. We are going to go to our docs. There we go. Now we start to see these endpoints, right? Let's try creating a user. So if I click try it out, this is how we test it. Here I can change this. I'm going to say Josh. Let's put my email 0toknowing@gmail.com and a string. Let's just say developer. Execute. And you can see here that we're getting an internal server error. And I'm going to need to check over this now. So I think what we're going to do here is I'm going to delete my database because it looks like we have a SQLAlchemy error. To better handle this, I think just deleting the database might help. Let's remove those here. Okay, I'm going to trash the terminal and let's close this and let's retry it. Okay, because if we make changes to the model or anything like that, oftentimes SQLAlchemy will throw an error. Uvicorn, my API app reload. So I want to make sure that that's not an issue. Okay, so docs. Let's create a new user. Let's try it out. Let's just execute. I don't have to put anything. Boom. Okay, this is working. So just by refreshing that database, if I go here now, so that works. So if I say Josh, let's say 0toknowing@gmail.com, and we are going to say developer, execute. Yeah, okay, look at that. How do we know it's working? Well, there's no error here, okay? But if I go here now, let's close this. Let's open get, and let's try to get a user. User2, execute. So I'm getting an internal error for now get. I'm able to add, but we're thrown the error for get. Let's look at our SQL command. You can see here, cannot access local variable user when it's not associated with the value. So user ID, that's because I did say user ID here. So this should actually be an underscore. Save. Let's refresh this page. Okay, so let's test that out now. Boom, there we go. That is a response. That's a good response, right? So we are up and working. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to leave it run, just close it. That's what reload does. And really coming down here now, I'm going to update user and we are going to delete user, just like that, okay? And then I guess I will do get all users. We can do that one too. For update user, we're going to say app. This is a put, okay? So put is the HTTP command for updating data. And we are just going to give this our user ID as well, along with our response model. Again, dropping in that. Great. Let's say update user. This is going to take a user ID, which is an integer. This is going to take a user, which is going to be from our create user. And this is also going to depend on our database being alive and present. Great. First thing, we need to get a database user, right? So I'm going to say DB query user. We are going to filter. What do we want to filter by here? User ID is equal to, let's make sure I do an underscore this time, ID first. If not DB user, we are going to raise an error because they do not exist. And again, we're just going to go up here. I'll say status code 404 again. Let's just say user does not exist. Great. Okay, so if the user doesn't exist, we raise that error. Otherwise, we need to loop through our database, our model. So for every field and value in our user, let's treat it like a dictionary. Let's get our items. Okay, we are going to set the attributes for this user. So DB user, field, and value. We've made a change to our database, so we need to commit. We need to refresh to our, what did I call it? DB user. And then finally, we are just going to return the DB user. Let's go to our docs. Let's refresh. Boom, there is my put. So just to confirm, we have number 1 was just an empty string that I added, all this stuff. Let's update this information now to show live information. Down here, we are going to try to update user 1, and let's call them Josh. No, can't do Josh. Let's say code with Josh. Email, you already know my email, so I am just going to put here subscribe, and we're going to say YouTube. Execute. Boom, looks like it works. It's been updated according to this. If we go up to run the check now, we're going to go back, execute number 1 again, and you can see that it has been updated in our database. This is awesome, guys. All right, this brings us into our last real CRUD operation here. So for this one, we are going to say app delete. That is the request that we're doing here. So users/user ID. That's who we're deleting. I'm going to create a function called delete user. And inside here, we are going to give it the user ID of an integer. And where is my database session? If we delete, we rely on that session. Now, again, before we even run this, I can just take these 3 lines because first thing, I need to see if I'm even in there to delete. If they're not, we get an error. Otherwise, we're just going to say DB delete. Who do you want to delete? The DB user that we did get back. We made a change. We're going to commit. We are going to refresh the database with the DB user, and we can return the DB user. That one was a little more simple. The only real change here is we just deleted. So I'm going to go back. We are going to refresh our dashboard. There is delete. Let's delete the first user. Execute. Internal server error. Okay, so we're getting an error here. That's okay. Let's go back. Let's check our terminal. Instance. Where am I going here? Go down. SQLAlchemy instance is not persistent with this session. Okay, that's fine. Let's fix it here. And I think, well, I can't return the user if they're not there anymore. That would make sense. Let me see if this is the problem. User deleted. Right, you can't return someone if you've just deleted them. Okay, so let's refresh that. Okay, firstly, let me try to get back user 1 to see if they're there, because although I got an error, they might not even be there anymore. User not even found. So I did delete user 1. They're not even there. If I go down, let's make sure, if we go to number 2, execute, I am still there. So we are going to delete user 2 now and make sure that we get back that message. execute internal server error, but I'll need to fix that error. If we go down to 2, I have been deleted. I have been deleted. So that's working, but something doesn't match up with me trying to get someone. And I think that's because I'm refreshing again. Let's delete that. Okay. Let's do the last endpoint and then I'll do a grand check on things. All right. We're just going to get all the users back. We could have 10 users, 20 users, who knows how many. I'm going to create our last endpoint. We're going to say get, and inside here, we're going to say users slash, right? There's more than one user. And in fact, there we go. Okay. We are going to give it our response model. So for this one slightly changes. I'm going to say response model is equal to what? Really, this is a list of user responses, right? There's going to be more than one in here. So I'm giving back a list. I'm just telling it should be of that type. And let's just say get all users. Now, when we get all users, this only relies on our database session. I don't need any outside information. And I'm just going to return db query user all. That is it. Make sure my indentation is correct. Save that. Is my error going to go away? It's buffering. Great. Okay. Let's do a quick one more time check. So I'm going to clear everything. Let's just go. I'm going to create 3 users. Okay. I'm going to say A. Oh, let's try it out first. A email test@gmail.com. Role testing. Execute. That has worked. Let's do another one real quick since we're here. B. Testing role, let's say video, because we're making a video right now. Execute. And then we're going to do C. Role, let's say Python. Execute. And I'm probably getting an error. B didn't go through. Why did I get an error? Because I'm using the same email. We can't use the same email. So Apple, execute. It did work. Okay, that's user 2. If we go F, we go here google@gmail.com, Python, it can be the same role. Let's execute. Okay, it does work. Remember, the same email is locked. We can't use that. We have 3 users now. Let's refresh. Okay, there we have get all users, and we are going to try it out. We're going to execute. There we go. These are all the users that our API has fetched and put into our database that we've been adding here with FastAPI. If I want to go and I want to delete ID 2, right? Let's go up. Let's confirm it and check it. We're going to go test. We're going to go to execute. User has been deleted. I got the correct message this time. This is great. When I go to get all my users, we can see that only 1 and 3 are there. This is how we integrate SQL into FastAPI. We've gone through all the routes, and if you came from the last video, the same sort of concepts apply, right? But these endpoints are different because now we're querying our database, and each endpoint relies on the database being created. When we make a change, we commit and we refresh, and that information is sent off to our database because not only did we create the API models, we created the database model that SQLAlchemy is using to communicate, right? This is how we integrate FastAPI and SQL together.
And there you guys have it. That is a fast API that we built out together, and we learned how to integrate a SQL database using an ORM, my favorite, SQLAlchemy. If you got value in today's video, hit that like button and subscribe. That means the world, so thank you guys for being here, and I really hope you did enjoy this content. Drop a comment, let me know what you guys want to see going forward, more types of content surrounding FastAPI, or something else you're struggling with, because I'm ready to dive in and break it down. Remember, the first link in the description, that's my Python masterclass where now anyone can join, where you unlock over 135 hands-on lessons, live Q&A sessions, all my ebooks, and maybe even some one-on-one coaching. I can't wait to see you guys there. Until next week's episode of Code with Josh, guys, I will see you then.